Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I took my blonde client here to a all over redhead, ginger, auburn situation. This is actually one of my best friends and one of my bridesmaids, Brittany, and we were ready for something new. So normally we do like just different variations of like blonde balayages on her, but she was having the redhead itch, and of course I had to deliver. So what we're going to kind of do is just do a mix of some money piece. We do want to touch up her money piece, so I do mix up a little bit of lightener for that. I am using Oligo's Extra Blonde. I'm just using Extra Blonde because we decided to keep her blonde a very warm strawberry blonde. So I didn't need the toning power of the cool tone blonde for that. So I just use Extra Blonde and 20 volume. I also mixed in a little bit of Olaplex in it as well. And I just did one bowl because, again, like I said, we're just bringing up her money piece. The rest of her blonde was still doing pretty good. And we did want to make sure we still had a good amount of dimension, but she still wanted it to be pretty rooty. So for the low light, I am doing L'Oreal Dia Richesse. This is their 8GC. And then you see me putting in 8G as well. I used, so I did 40 grams of color altogether, and I did 30 grams of their 8GC, I did 5 grams of 8G, and then I'm going to do 5 grams of their 7CCC. We wanted it to be a very natural copper, and when someone naturally is not copper, I've learned through the years, especially when they're blonde, and you are toning them down to copper, you actually need more gold in your formula than copper for a few reasons. One, it will likely hold a little bit better because gold has a lot of times they're going to have a more of a brown to tan background, and as we know, browns and tans hold better in the hair than like a pure orange pigment essentially. So putting in that gold is going to help that hold better than if you do just put in straight copper. Also, too, if I were to have had the bulk of her low light formula be more of the 7C, it would be a very fluorescent copper. Because, again, it was also not just 7C, but 7CCC, so a very intense copper. But from what I remember, from what I believe, I think that was the only, like, C line that they had for Dia with L'Oreal was their 7CCC, not just, like, a single pigment copper. So they have 3 punches of a 7C all squeezed into that little tube, so it's going to be pretty intense. So that's why I only really wanted to do 5 grams of it, because again, I wanted it to be really natural. I debated on even putting it in there in general, honestly, too, but I figured something just told me like 5 grams would be just enough to kind of give it a little bit more of that like copper kick without it being way too much. So yeah. Also, too, if she was more of a platinum blonde, I definitely would have added a lot more 8G in there, too. However, we've been doing a warm blonde on her for a while, so she already is, like, when I've toned her in the past, she's already been, I put a lot of gold in her formula anyway. So keep that in mind, too, is, again, that's why I really like the 8GC for coppers, because it fills and does what it needs to do at the same time. But again, if this was someone that was like a level 9, that was like a more of a icy 9 instead of a warm 9, I definitely would have more made the 8G to the 8GC more of an equal parts thing. So keep in mind, like I said, my client's starting level was already a warm blonde, so I did not have to fill as much as I normally would if it was someone that was more of a platinum blonde. So what you guys see me doing in here is I am touching up her whole money piece area. Like I said, Oligo's Extra Blonde with 20 volume, a little bit of Olaplex. And when you're touching up just the money piece and you're doing what I would book this service as a color melt. And whenever I call color melts, as pretty much going darker of some sort, whether we're doing low lights, all over color, or we are doing like where we're taking someone from like highlights to a balayage. Color melt is just darkening what you have for the most part. That's what works best for me and with my clients. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to lighten the hair at all. Like we see even here, I'm still bringing up her money piece. But we are, the goal, the overall goal of the appointment is doing something darker. I can get into like how I go about booking these types of services in a later video, but like I said, this is just kind of what I would book it as. I plan around 3 hours for these services too, just to give you a little bit of a guide. But when I'm doing these more what I call, again, color melts, where we're going darker and we're just bringing up a few highlights, especially just here in this money piece. And normally when I'm touching up her blonde, I'm doing quite a bit of slicing in her money piece and a lot more baby lighting. But I wanted this to be very, very soft of a root touch up in her money piece, because again, if I were to do like my traditional money piece placement on her when she was a blonde compared to this darker color she's going to have, it's going to come up so much more stark. So where you would maybe do slices, consider doing more weaves, or where you wouldn't tease to leave a little bit of depth at the root, maybe consider leaving a little bit more. So I didn't do any slicing. Everything was all fine weaves, just because that, again, adds a little bit of softness to the overall look, but still brings it up. I did still do like the same amount of money piece highlights, because again, she did still want to have like her still like money piece situation. We did decide that we wanted to keep it, you know, a little bit on like the warmer or strawberry blondie kind of side compared to her typical just like warm goldeny blonde. But that's probably one of my biggest tips for bringing up, especially when you're not bringing up any other highlights anywhere else like this situation, is it's extremely important to encourage that fluidity, and it's your job to make sure that you are keeping it fluid while you're still bringing up the blonde. So once that finished up, I went in the back, and as you guys see, how I'm going about low lighting is I am pretty much bricklaying and going along the curvature of her head. I'm focusing on more of the mid shaft, and then I'm kind of just like feathering up into the root for this. She did decide that she had a really great root grow out, and we decided that we still wanted to keep her root pretty much for the most part like what it naturally already was. So we're keeping it untouched. We knew that there was going to be lowlights painted in there, but we liked the brown base, and I didn't want to take away from that too much. So that's why I didn't opt for any highlights. And we talked about doing like a warmer brown shadow root at the bowl, but we felt very confident knowing that like with the mix of some low lights in there and the all over gloss, that it would just kind of help to like kind of shift it without us having to actually put intentional color on there. And at the end result will show you even more why I'm glad that we did, because it looked amazing. I feel like those she's a true level 5, and I feel like more of those level 5s you are able to, if they're okay with their brown base staying out and it not being copper all the way up to the root, I feel like level 5s are perfect for not having to do any root if they don't want it, because it's just enough that it has a little bit of depth. And I feel like it just kind of naturally adding in that copper, even if it was more of a mousy 5, which is what she kind of normally is, a little bit more of that cooler tone 5. Those lowlights and just the all over gloss really help to like warm it up just enough, but again, give her a lot of depth. So a big tip when you're going through and you're low lighting is low light with intention. I know a lot of my blonding girls are afraid of low lighting, and I used to be too when I didn't know what I was doing. So I kind of break it down in a couple different ways. Am I low lighting to just build dimension, or am I low lighting to shift the all over look of the hair? Because if you're low lighting just to add in dimension for a blonde, just to make a blonde appear a little bit brighter, or make it not appear as dull, and make some blonde pieces pop, I'm going to low light way differently than I am in this situation where I'm low lighting to give the overall shift from an overall blonde to an overall copper. One of the biggest things I will do differently, one, of course, I'm not going to low light as much if I was just adding a little bit of dimension. So keep that in mind, is I'm going to be doing a very full coverage low light placement for this, for one. And then for two, something else is how are you placing your low lights? If you're just going through and you're placing dimension, you're most likely not going to put all of the lowlights, if any of them, all the way down through the ends of the hair. How I word it to my clients is I'm like, if they say that they want lowlights or they kind of want to shift the vibe a little bit of their hair, I'll ask them, are we looking to change you from going from appearing as a blonde to, in this situation, You know, are we looking to go from looking like an overall blonde to an overall copper all over and not looking like a blonde? Or do you still want to be a blonde, but you just have copper lowlights or copper dimension or whatever? So if she would have told me that she wanted just more of like copper dimension and she really wanted just more of like a strawberry blonde effect without like being an overall copper, I would not have brought her lowlights all the way down through the ends of the hair. So if we're going to translate this to someone that's blonde that wants to bring some lowlights in that's like they're natural or a little bit darker, same thing. I'll ask them, are we trying to be an overall blonde still, or are we looking to explore being more of an overall brunette? And if they say, I more so just want to be a blonde with just a little bit more dimension, you can get dimension without bringing those lowlights all the way down. When you bring those lowlights all the way down through the ends, that's where it's going to start to shift the eye to making it all looking like it's all that darker color. I hope that makes sense. And then again, obviously, the more lowlights you're going to put in through the hair, the more darker it's going to appear too. But I just feel like when the lowlights are all placed all the way through the ends, that's where it really starts to absorb. The light really starts to absorb into whatever lowlight color you used, which therefore makes you appear like you're not a blonde anymore and you're whatever lowlight shade that you did. So keep that in mind. Something else that I'm doing, especially for this, is so we wanted to go to more of an all over copper with some strawberry blonde baby lights. So rooted baby lights too, mind you. That's why I didn't bring any highlights up besides in her money piece. So when you're low lighting, keep this in mind, is I am doing a little bit thicker of sections, and I am making sure I'm visualizing my leave out, and I'm taking that into consideration before I place any low light. Is I kind of look and I'm like, does this look like this would be a good baby light shade or good baby light placement? You kind of have to stop just thinking of your placement as just where you're putting color on, because what you're leaving out is placement exactly enough in itself too. So once when I felt like my leave out placement was good and it looked like it would be a good baby light, and I felt like I had enough but not too much hair in my low light section too, that's kind of when I knew, okay, I'm good to, apply my color here. As I'm getting to the top, as you guys see, again, just to encourage that more baby light effect even more. I normally don't do a lot of weaving for low lighting, especially when I'm low lighting to go darker, because I kind of feel like I'm having to do a little bit more work and I feel like I'm able to get more coverage. When I'm low lighting for more coverage versus just dimension, especially too, I don't do a whole lot of weaving, but I did decide in some sections to kind of just do very small, like I took thicker sections than I would if I was doing like a baby light highlight, but I baby lighted some leave out of it too, just because again that added just that little bit of extra softness. So just to reiterate, take a little bit of a larger section than what you normally would if you're doing a baby light highlight. So maybe instead of like a baby light sectioning, take like a highlight sectioning, but then just slightly baby light out some leave out to give a little bit of that baby lighted effect then when you go to leave out that blonde. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, I continue this all the way up to the head. How I'm like figuring out my sectioning is pretty much based on the curvature of the head too. Again, since we wanted this to appear very natural, going along the head shape and the growth pattern was very, very vital and important. And what I'm pretty much doing then on this side was exactly the same as what I did on the other side. So I'm just going to kind of let you guys watch, and I'll come back on when I am about to tone. All right, so you see me painting the ends here too. This was just because she lives in Florida, and so the sun just really loves to like warm the heck out of her hair. So I'm pretty much always painting the ends when I'm seeing her, just because I feel like that helps to give her hair a little bit of a pop for the toner to hold. But anyway, I let this process for only like 20-ish minutes. That's the great part about going darker, is no one has to process all day. And then I'm going to show you guys my lowlight tone down, my toner formula. Why can I not figure out words today? So it's the same. The home base of it is still a level 8. If there was an 8C, I would have used 8C too from Redken, but I didn't have an 8K from Oligo in stock. And then if Redken does have an 8C, I didn't have that in stock either. So that's why I used, I'm going to tell in the description box, I'm going to have below what I would have used, but since I had to use more 7C, I kind of had to alter my formula a little bit. Ideally, I would have had an 8C, but essentially I did the same toner formula as I did for her low light. However, since it's a gloss and I'm putting it on wet, it comes on a little bit more sheer, and that's how you get this super like natural result. You guys, I am very proud of this. Being a blonde specialist, coppers are not like my world's strongest suit, but I was very proud of this. My friend absolutely loved it too. Make sure that you give your clients realistic expectations with being copper. Is yes, even though I did use a lot of gold in her formula, that does help with longevity. However, she is still copper. She's still going to lose that vibrancy quicker. She's still going to have to upkeep it quicker. With her living in Florida and she's actually licensed, she's going to be able to upkeep this a little bit more on her own. But be realistic with your clients that obviously are not licensed, and their upkeep is going to be a lot different than it is with their traditional blonde balayage. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to sound off in the comments below. Be sure to like and follow and subscribe, all the things. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks so much. Bye.